She came home early, only to find her billionaire husband wearing a gatekeeper's uniform and sweeping the steps. But when she asked why, what he revealed shook her to the core. And that was just the beginning. Before we begin this powerful story, make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon so you never miss our inspiring, life-changing content. If you enjoy meaningful stories that touch the heart and awaken the spirit, like, share, and support the channel. This is more than just entertainment. Every story here carries a moral lesson designed to inspire, uplift, and empower you. Billionaire lady comes home early and can't believe what she sees her gateman doing. They call me the billionaire with no past. But the truth is, my past is the only reason I became what I am. The iron gates of my estate may open wide now, but I still remember the days when I had to beg to push open doors half their size. Back then, wealth was not even a dream. Back then, I was a gatekeeper. Not of some mansion, but of my own pride. Her name was Ariana. The woman who changed everything. Not with power. Not with money. But with something rarer. Kindness. I met her on a rainy night when I was soaking in shame, standing guard outside a rundown textile factory. She walked past me with broken heels, holding a file soaked through with rejection. I did not know then that she was rejected from that factory for speaking up for underpaid women. She did not know then that I had just been slapped by my own supervisor for trying to help an old man who had collapsed near the gate. 2 strangers. 2 wounds. 1 moment. She offered me her umbrella, even though I was already drenched. I gave her my jacket, even though I only had one. And just like that, misery found a mirror. But it did not break. It reflected. It grew. Ariana had dreams. Not the kind that sparkle in magazines, but the kind that keep you awake at night. She wanted to build a workplace where no woman was silenced, where no man was made to kneel to feed his family. I wanted to stop being invisible, to prove that my worth was not measured by the uniform I wore. We started with borrowed notebooks and second-hand hope. I cleaned floors in the day and learned Excel at night. She stood in union lines by day and wrote grant proposals by candlelight. We lost count of the rejections. We remembered every lesson. One night, I came back to our shared rented room and saw Ariana asleep at the table, her head resting on a laptop that did not belong to us. She had borrowed it from a stranger on the train to complete a business plan. For me. For us. It was not glamorous. It was not even smart. But it was pure. She believed in something I could not yet see. She saw me. Not the gatekeeper. Not the errand boy. Me. The man I could become. Years passed. Investors laughed. Banks closed their doors. Landlords threw out our flyers. But we kept building. One customer at a time. One sleepless night after another. And then the call came. A forgotten email. A competition Ariana had entered in my name. We won. $20,000. Enough to rent a tiny office. Enough to hire 3 women Ariana once stood with on the picket line. Enough to breathe. Fast forward to today. I am the founder of one of the most respected ethical fashion empires in the country. Every button, every stitch, sewn with purpose. Every policy written with the ink of pain we lived through. But you do not see that on the news. You see headlines. You see power. You see me. What you do not see is what Ariana saw before anyone else. Until yesterday, when she came home early to the mansion we now share and saw something that made her drop her purse at the door. Something she never expected to see. She stood frozen at the entrance, her heels clicking once against the marble, then silence. I looked up from the garden courtyard, holding a broom, wearing the old gatekeeper's uniform I had kept all these years. The one I first wore the night we met. I had been sweeping the front steps. My hands, blistered from intentional work. My eyes, full of quiet. She whispered my name, confused. Her voice trembled like the wind that carried the scent of the jasmine she planted last spring. "Why are you dressed like that?" I smiled. But it was not the smile of a billionaire. It was the smile of a man remembering who he used to be.
And who he could have become, if she had not intervened.
Earlier that day, I had overheard one of our staff mocking a new hire.
A young boy, thin, nervous, afraid of eye contact.
He was the son of a single mother from the factory Ariana once fought against. He had spilled water near the foyer.
Apologized too many times.
They told him, "This job is not for you. You are just a gatekeeper's son." I stood quietly in the hallway. Every word pierced through me like a knife.
Because once, I was that boy.
So I sent the team home early.
Put on the old uniform. And took his place. Not to prove a point. But to remember one.
That dignity does not come from title. It comes from how you treat the invisible. How you respect the beginning. How you never forget the rain that shaped your roots. Ariana stepped forward, her eyes wet with something deeper than confusion. She reached out and touched my collar. Her fingers tracing the faded name tag. "Daniel," she said softly, "you do not need to do this."
I looked at her. No.
I needed to.
She fell silent.
The evening light painted soft gold across her face. The wind carried the smell of dust, rain, and roses. "I needed to remind myself," I said, "what you saw when no one else did." She wrapped her arms around me tight.
No cameras. No applause.
Only two hearts that knew every crack in each other's armor. We stood there as night fell.
And then, a soft voice behind us. "Sir." We turned. It was the boy,
holding a tray of tea. His hands shaking. "I made this for you."
"And ma'am,
I hope I did it right." I saw fear in his eyes.
But also hope.
I invited him to sit. Right there on the stone step where I once sat, all those years ago.
And for the first time, he smiled.
That small, crooked smile of a boy who realized he might belong.
Just maybe.
That night, Ariana and I sat in silence long after the boy had gone. She placed her head on my shoulder. I stared at the uniform beside me.
And knew.
We were not building a company.
We were building people.
Just like someone once built me. The stars had started to pierce through the velvet sky. Ariana's breathing was steady against my shoulder. But I could feel her heart, quiet, full, aching with something tender and unspoken. For a long while, we said nothing. The kind of silence only two souls who have walked through fire together can share. Then she whispered, "Do you ever wonder, what would have happened if we had given up?"
I turned to her. "No." "Why not?" she asked.
I looked up at the sky. Because I had wondered.
Many times.
But tonight, my answer was different. Because if we had given up, I said slowly, we would have never known who we truly are.
She closed her eyes.
A tear slipped out before she could hide it. "I am so tired sometimes," she said, voice trembling, "carrying this mission. Fighting for people who do not even know what we gave up to stand here."
I held her hand. Not tightly.
Just enough so she could feel that I was still there. "You carried me first," I said. "You fought for me when I was not even fighting for myself." Her lips parted as if to protest, but I gently placed my fingers against them. "You do not owe the world an explanation, Ariana. But you are the explanation." That night, I pulled out the old wooden box she once gave me. The one I had never opened. She looked confused. I placed it in her lap. She hesitated. "I told you to open it years ago," she said. "I was not ready," I replied. "But tonight, I need to." She slowly lifted the lid. Inside was a single photo. Of me. From our first protest rally. Holding a torn sign that read, "Respect builds empires." Behind the photo, a folded letter. Her handwriting, faded by time. She handed it to me, her fingers trembling. "Daniel, I do not know where this journey will take us. I do not know if we will ever win. But if you are reading this, it means we did not give up. It means you believed in yourself like I believed in you. And it means the world is about to change because of that belief. With all my heart." "Ariana." I could not speak. My throat closed with emotion. She leaned into me, and for a moment, time slowed. The mansion around us faded. The riches, the power, the headlines, none of it mattered. Only this. This quiet moment of truth. This soft, infinite silence between two people who started with nothing and found everything. But just as I folded the letter and placed it back into the box,
a phone rang in the distance. Shrill. Urgent.
Ariana stood up, her brows furrowed. She walked inside to answer it.
Her voice was calm at first. But then, it changed. Sharpened. Panicked.
She called out to me, her voice echoing through the hallway. "Daniel, you need to hear this." I rushed inside. Her hand trembled as she handed me the phone. "It is about our new factory in Eastland," she whispered. And then I heard the words. That shook everything we had built. The voice on the other end was tight with urgency.
Not fear. Not yet. But close. "Sir, there has been an incident."
"At the Eastland factory." I straightened my back, holding the phone tighter. "What kind of incident?"
A pause. Then, "There is a protest."
Workers walked out. They are accusing the new floor manager of harassment and threatening to shut down the plant unless he is removed.
My jaw clenched.
I had appointed him myself. A man with perfect credentials.
Polished background.
Charming during interviews. But credentials can hide cracks. And cracks, left unattended, can collapse everything. Ariana was watching me, her eyes already scanning solutions in her mind. But this was not just a business issue.
This was personal.
That factory was our newest. Built with our values. With our story carved into every stone.
And now,
someone was using our name to intimidate the very people we vowed to protect. I ended the call.
Looked at Ariana. She nodded.
"I will pack a bag."
"No," I said gently.
"I will go alone."
She paused.
Brows tightening with concern. "I need them to see me," I said. "Not as a billionaire. Not as a name on a letterhead. But as the man who once stood in their shoes. Who still remembers what it means to be unheard."
She walked over. Touched my cheek.
"Promise me something," she whispered.
"Anything."
"When you speak to them, do not speak as the owner." She placed her hand over my heart. "Speak as the gatekeeper." By morning, I was on a flight.
No entourage. No cameras.
Just me, a suitcase, and the weight of a dream slipping at its edges. The car that picked me up was old and dented. The kind drivers use when they are too proud to quit. I liked it immediately. The road to Eastland was long. Dusty. Winding through fields and rust-colored skies. But my mind kept returning to one face. The boy who brought me tea. Because I knew. If we failed at Eastland, if our message was corrupted, then boys like him would never believe in kindness again. When I arrived at the factory gates, the protest was still burning. Men and women stood holding signs. Eyes filled with betrayal, pain, and something worse. Disappointment. Because we had promised them more. And now they were asking, were we just like the others? I stepped out of the car. No security. No badge. Just a voice that once shook as it asked for a chance. The crowd went silent when they saw me. A few people murmured, "That is him. Daniel Royce. He actually came." But one voice. A woman near the back. Louder than the rest. "Words are not enough this time, Mr. Royce." I looked into her eyes. Then up at the crowd. And I knew what I had to do. I reached into my bag. Pulled out the same old gatekeeper's uniform. And right there, in the dust, in front of the angry crowd, I began to change. Gasps. Whispers. Then silence. Until one man said, "What are you doing?" I stood tall. In the uniform I once wore with shame. Now, I wore it with pride. I raised my voice. "Before I speak," I said, "I will listen. Not as your employer, but as your equal. Because I have been where you stand. And I will never forget that." And then, from the middle of the crowd,
A girl stepped forward, barely 17. Eyes fierce, fists clenched. She said,
"I am not afraid to speak anymore. But are you ready to hear what I have to say?"
I looked her in the eye. "Yes," I replied.
"I came here for your truth."
What she told me next
would uncover a darkness I never expected. A betrayal buried not just in our system, but in someone very close to us. She stepped closer, the crowd parting like waves before her.
Her voice was steady, but her hands, they trembled. "My name is Lila," she began.
"I started here 3 months ago. My mother worked in the old North plant before it shut down. We believed in you."
In her. She meant Ariana.
The name alone brought a hush over the crowd. Lila's eyes locked on mine.
Unblinking.
Burning with disappointment. But 2 weeks ago, everything changed.
She took a breath. Then another.
The new manager, Mr. Beckman. He asked me to stay late. Said I had potential. That I was special.
Her jaw tightened.
I thought it meant I was doing good work. But her next words cracked something deep inside me. He said if I wanted to keep the job, I would need to be
flexible.
A wave of shocked murmurs rolled through the crowd.
My stomach twisted.
He cornered me, put his hand on my back. I froze. She wiped her cheek, furious with herself for letting the tears fall.
I ran. And when I told someone in HR, she laughed. Said he was your man.
Said if I made trouble, I would never work in this industry again.
I closed my eyes.
The pain in my chest was sharp.
Not just for her,
but for what we had allowed to grow unnoticed. In the house we built on trust. I stepped forward, not as a CEO, but as a man with his soul scraped raw. "I am so sorry, Lila." She looked at me waiting. Not just for what happened to you, but for every second I was blind to it. I turned to the crowd. I trusted a man who did not deserve it. And in doing so, I failed all of you.
Silence.
Until a man shouted, "So what now?" A question that echoed louder than it was spoken.
I pulled out my phone. Dialed Beckman.
He answered with a smug tone. "Sir, I was about to call. I heard You're fired," I said. "Effective immediately."
He choked. "You what?" "You are done. Your access is revoked. Your final pay will be audited for illegal bonuses. And you will be reported." Then I hung up. The crowd watched, eyes wide, uncertain, until Lila asked the question they were all thinking. "And the HR woman who silenced me?" I nodded. "She goes too." A woman in the crowd let out a soft gasp. Then a cheer. And then Lila smiled. But it was not a smile of triumph. It was one of relief. Of being seen. Of knowing she mattered. I walked to the center of the factory yard. Climbed up on the old stone planter where the morning bell used to ring. "My name is Daniel Royce," I said, voice firm. "I am not just your employer. I am your servant. Your shield. And your reminder that success means nothing if it is built on silence." I pointed to the gates behind them. When I first came through doors like these, I was nobody. Today, I walk back through them to say, never again. That night, I sat in the factory break room with Lila. We sipped tea from plastic cups. And for the first time in days, she laughed. She told me about her mother. About the dreams they still held. And as I listened, I realized something. Ariana had been right. This company was not ours. It belonged to the voices like Lila's. The ones who spoke. And the ones who had not yet found the courage. The next morning, I called Ariana. Before I could speak, she whispered, "I heard what you did." Her voice cracked. "I am proud of you, Daniel." I smiled. And then I told her, there is more. Because what I had discovered that night was only the beginning of a deeper betrayal, rooted not in strangers, but in someone who once sat at our own table. I sat in the dim office, the blinds drawn, the silence heavy. The morning light crept in cautiously,
as if even the sun was unsure of what I had uncovered. Ariana's voice was still on the line, soft in my ear. "Someone from our table?" she asked carefully.
"Yes," I said.
"And it is worse than we imagined." I leaned back. My hand trembled slightly as I opened the printed file Lila had slipped to me before leaving. It was a copy of an internal communication trail. Encrypted. Hidden. But someone had been careful. And someone else had not. At first, I saw a familiar name. An advisor. One who had been with us since the beginning. Leon Graves. I had trusted him with contracts, vendor negotiations, even staffing in our overseas plants. He was sharp. Efficient. Always said what needed to be said. But never too much. The emails painted a clear picture. He had recommended Beckman. He had silenced red flags. He had approved expense reports laced with consulting fees that led to dummy accounts. And more than that, he had used our mission, our story, to gain favors from powerful allies. To build his own private empire, inside mine. I felt sick. The walls around me blurred. How many voices had gone unheard because of him? How many Liliths never got the chance to speak? I finally spoke into the phone. "Ariana, it is Leon. He used us. He betrayed everything we built. Everything you fought for." She was silent. Then, "No. He did not betray me. He betrayed the people." I could hear her rising from her chair. Her voice gaining strength. "This is not just about firing him, Daniel. We need to expose this. Publicly. Truthfully. No spin. No damage control." I hesitated. "You know what that will cost us." "I know exactly what it will cost us," she replied. "But I also know what it will save." The next day, we called for an emergency board meeting. Every seat was filled. Some faces curious. Some tense. Leon relaxed. Confident. He wore his favorite navy suit and that thin, calculated smile. He did not know what I had in my folder. I stood at the head of the table. No screens. No graphs. Just truth. I placed the printouts down. Let the silence breathe. And then I said, "We are not here today to talk about profits. We are here to talk about betrayal. Not by competitors. Not by protesters. But by one of our own." Leon shifted in his seat, brows twitching slightly. "Before this meeting is over," I said, my voice sharp, "every one of you will see exactly what happens when greed tries to wear the mask of vision." And just as I prepared to read the first email aloud, Ariana entered the room. Her presence turned every head. She walked with calm fire. And when she stood beside me, I felt the room shift. She looked straight at Leon. And softly said, "You once told me that ideals are for dreamers. Well, today the dreamers are awake." Leon's jaw clenched. But before he could speak, one of the junior board members stood up. "I have seen enough," he said. "I stand with them." And then, another voice. And another. Until the room was no longer silent, but rising, moving, shifting its weight toward the side of truth. Leon tried to interrupt, but his words fell like glass. Shattered. What happened next would change not only our company, but would ripple into every corner of the industry, exposing truths that had been buried for years. But it would also put us in danger, because powerful men do not fall quietly. And one of them was not ready to let go. They say empires fall from the outside. But I learned, the most dangerous cracks begin within. Leon was removed that day. Not with anger, but with truth. A full internal audit followed. We returned funds. Publicly apologized to every name that was buried beneath his shadow. And when the media came for headlines, we gave them something else. Accountability. We invited Lila to speak at our town hall. She stood tall on the same stage where once only executives had stood. And her voice, clear, unshaking, became the first in a new wave of leadership. We launched the Voices First initiative. An open platform. Anonymous.
Protected.
Staff from every corner of the company could speak, report, question,
and be heard.
Ariana and I stood together at every meeting, not as symbols of success, but as reminders that you do not rise above your people. You rise with them. The mansion, the gates, the fortune, none of it mattered anymore. Because when Lila's mother sent a letter months later, telling us her daughter had started her own ethical brand, using our values as her foundation,
I wept.
Not because we had won,
but because she had.
And for the first time since I wore that gatekeeper's uniform, I no longer feared losing everything, because I understood something deeper.
Something powerful.
Success is not about what you own. It is about what you protect.
The voices, the stories, the truth.
Moral lesson. In a world chasing profit and pride, never forget the people who helped build your path. Never silence the voices that speak uncomfortable truths. And never trade integrity for image. Because real empires
are not built on wealth.
They are built on character. Thank you for listening to this heartfelt story. If it moved you, share it, comment below, and let someone know. You are never alone.